Have you ever realized that the very virtue you cherish might be your greatest vulnerability? We're raised on a simple promise: kindness is strength, fairness wins respect, and honesty guarantees reward. Yet the world we live in defies that fairy tale. Instead of uplifting the kind-hearted, it exploits them. Consider Ella, a devoted high school teacher who poured every ounce of compassion into her students. She stayed late planning lessons, offered extra tutoring, and lent her own funds for classroom supplies. But when budget cuts forced layoffs, Ella watched colleagues with sharper agendas secure promotions while she, the embodiment of selflessness, was deemed too soft for leadership. Or think of Marcus, the friend whose loyalty knew no bounds. He answered midnight texts, dropped everything to drive pals through crises, and forgave betrayals with a generous heart. Yet every favor he granted became an unspoken expectation. Marcus will handle it. His own emergency went unanswered, his calls unreturned. His kindness became an open invitation for others to use him until he had nothing left. This is the lie of kindness. Good intentions give others power over you. In boardrooms, it's the employee who never sets boundaries who ends up with the heaviest workload and the thinnest paycheck. In relationships, it's the partner who sacrifices personal needs who eventually feels hollowed out, left wondering why love wasn't enough. We fool ourselves into believing fairness is a universal law, yet it's a fragile construct, easily discarded when ambition or fear takes hold. Kindness isn't worthless, it's essential to our humanity. But in a world driven by self-interest and competition, kindness without strategy becomes a liability. Machiavelli, exiled and betrayed in 1513, understood this brutal truth. He didn't condemn virtue. He revealed that virtue alone doesn't secure your place at the table. To survive and thrive, you must pair moral integrity with tactical awareness. Imagine a life where generosity is tempered by discernment. You still extend a helping hand, but you do so with clear boundaries. You still champion fairness, but you recognize when the game rules have shifted. You remain true to your values, yet you refuse to let those values become the chains that bind you. As you continue watching, ask yourself, where has your kindness been exploited, and how might you reclaim your power without sacrificing your humanity? The journey ahead will challenge every comforting belief you hold about goodness and reveal the path to a more resilient, empowered you. In 1513, Niccolò Machiavelli found himself a stranger in his own city. Once a trusted diplomat in Florence, he was abruptly stripped of his post, accused of conspiracy, and cast into exile. Picture him pacing a barren villa outside the city walls, betrayed, humiliated, and haunted by the memory of power lost. Yet in that isolation, Machiavelli's mind ignited with a fierce clarity. To survive, one must understand power's ruthless mechanics. Rejected by the Medici rulers he once served, Machiavelli refused to pen apologies or plead for mercy. Instead, he harnessed his anger and disappointment to compose a radical guide, The Prince. By candlelight, he sketched a blueprint so unapologetically pragmatic that it was later banned by the Vatican. He argued that rulers must be as cunning as foxes and as forceful as lions, blending adaptability with strength to command respect. As he wrote, Machiavelli dissected the failures of two good princes who clung to mercy at the expense of security. He illustrated how hesitation invites chaos, how unchecked compassion breeds betrayal, and how fear when wielded judiciously cements authority. His language was direct, his tone unflinching. Power isn't granted by virtue, it's seized by those who master strategy. Machiavelli's exile fueled every line of The Prince. He drew from bitter lessons. His own downfall underlined the peril of relying on goodwill alone. In exile's cold solitude, he transformed personal disgrace into universal insight. The work that emerged was not a call to cruelty, but a mirror held up to human nature, showing that survival often demands choices no fairy tale would condone. Today, centuries later, The Prince still reverberates in boardrooms and battlefields alike. Its lessons echo in the decisive CEO who shields strategic plans, the political leader who balances charm with calculated firmness, and anyone who recognizes that moral purity alone cannot secure one's place in a cutthroat world. Machiavelli's exile was his crucible, forging a doctrine that teaches us to thrive. We must see power not as an abstract ideal, but as a living, brutal force and learn to wield it wisely. Have you ever wondered why rulers would rather be feared than loved? Machiavelli cuts straight to the heart of this brutal truth in The Prince. Love is fickle, but fear is steadfast. Love binds only as long as it suits people's desires when your value wanes. So does their loyalty. Fear, however, forges obedience through respect for your strength and the dread of your reprisals. Picture two brothers fighting for a throne. The older sibling paves his path with kindness, granting pardons, granting favors, granting trust. The realm cheers his generosity until hardship strikes. In moments of crisis, his subjects beg for decisive leadership. They demand the iron fist he refuses to wield. Their confidence wavers and rebellion takes root. His love, abundant but conditional, crumbles under pressure. Now consider the younger brother, equally capable but guided by Machiavelli's logic. He greets petitions with firm boundaries, rewards loyalty with tangible benefits, and punishes betrayal with swift, unmistakable severity. His reign is not celebrated for warmth, but it stands unshaken. His people may fear him, but they respect him, choosing stability over the uncertainty of mercy misapplied. History echoes this pattern. Julius Caesar was adored by the masses for his generosity, but his habitual clemency signaled weakness to the Senate. On the Ides of March, poisoned by those he once pardoned, he paid with his life. Augustus, his successor, learned from that fatal mistake. He tempered mercy with calculated ruthlessness, rewarding allies but quietly eliminating threats. His empire endured for decades, built on the solid ground of fear tempered by rare kindness. Even today, in corporate boardrooms and political arenas, fear continues to outlast love. The CEO who delivers uncompromising deadlines earns grudging respect, while the one who preaches only collaboration is quickly sidelined when tough calls are required. The politician who balances charisma with an unmistakable warning, "Cross me and you'll regret it," retains a loyal base, while the well-meaning idealist finds their agenda derailed by opportunists. This isn't a call to villainy, it's an invitation to understand human nature. Fear secures obedience when love falters, anchoring your authority in respect for your competence and resolve. Love may inspire, but fear guarantees compliance. As you reflect on Machiavelli's harsh dichotomy, ask yourself, are you building loyalty on the shifting sands of affection, or on the bedrock of respected strength? The answer will determine whether you lead with influence or fade into obscurity. History doesn't just illustrate Machiavelli's warnings, it screams them. Across centuries, leaders who embraced mercy at the wrong moment have fallen, while those who balanced compassion with calculated resolve have endured. Take King Louis XVI of France. A monarch of genuine goodwill, he dismantled draconian laws, opened channels for public dialogue, and even financed relief for the poor from his own coffers. In his marble halls, he preached justice and equality. Yet when revolution swept through Paris, his concessions were seen as weakness, not benevolence. As the guillotine blade fell, Louis faced the crowd with quiet dignity, but mercy had abandoned him. The very people he sought to protect demanded blood over compromise, leaving his idealistic reign in ruins. Contrast this with the Roman saga of Julius Caesar and his heir, Augustus. Caesar burst through Gaul as a conquering hero, beloved by soldiers and plebeians alike for his magnanimous pardons and public games. He forgave senators who once opposed him, believing that generosity would cement loyalty. Instead, his clemency sowed betrayal. On the Ides of March, in the echoing chambers of the Senate, 13 stilettoed blades silenced his laughter forever. Augustus, his adopted son, learned from that fatal compassion. He presented himself as Rome's savior but wielded power with discreet ruthlessness. He rewarded veterans, erected monuments celebrating Roman might, and granted clemency only to those who swore unyielding allegiance. Meanwhile, potential rivals met quiet ends: exile, confiscation, or worse. Under Augustus's watch, Rome enjoyed 40 years of relative peace, the Pax Romana built on a foundation of strategic fear entwined with calculated generosity. These cases illuminate a stark reality. Excessive mercy invites chaos, whereas measured firmness breeds stability. Louis's idealism collapsed under revolutionary fervor. Caesar's trust crumbled in a hail of betrayal. Augustus's judicious brutality forged an empire. Each story pulses with emotional resonance: the king's remorse as he ascended the scaffold, the general's surprise at each thrust of the dagger, the heir's cold calculation as he ordered his enemies' disappearances. As you reflect on these tales, consider your own life's crossroads. Where might misplaced compassion leave you vulnerable? And how could a tempered resolve secure the stability you crave? These historical lessons don't just belong in dusty tomes, they're survival guides for anyone seeking to navigate the treacherous currents of power and human nature. The ruthless rules of power didn't vanish with the fall of ancient empires, they've simply adapted to our modern stage. Today's titans of industry and politics wield Machiavellian tactics with cutting-edge precision, reminding us that fear remains the ultimate currency of influence. Consider Steve Jobs, the visionary behind Apple's meteoric rise. Colleagues describe him as both magnetic and merciless. He demanded perfection, guiding product teams through grueling reality distortion fields, where deadlines blurred and tolerance vanished. When a manager faltered, Jobs didn't hesitate to deliver a blistering critique or to replace them outright. Underneath the veneer of innovation lay a steely willingness to sacrifice personal relationships for the sake of Apple's ambitions. His fearsome reputation of walking into a meeting and freezing executives with a single glare galvanized loyalty but also ignited anxiety. Yet from that pressure cooker emerged the iPod, iPhone, and iPad devices that reshaped our world. Meanwhile, halfway across the globe, Vladimir Putin has perfected the politics of calculated intimidation. Rising from a KGB background, he engineered a return to authoritarian control, neutralizing opposition through a blend of legal maneuvering, exile, and, allegedly, more covert measures. His Russia is a tableau of controlled fear. Oligarchs who once thrived on free market chaos now kneel in submission, silenced by the unspoken knowledge that dissenting voices risk far more than career setbacks. Citizens learn quickly. Public loyalty might grant safety, but a single misstep can mean disappearance or exile. Then there's Elon Musk, the unpredictable maestro of tech and space. He tweets market-moving announcements at dawn, fires entire departments with a single email, and pushes teams to bend physics and profit margins alike. His colleagues oscillate between exhilaration and dread, knowing that each Musk decree could catapult them into the history books or thrust them into unemployment. Yet his bold gambles, reusable rockets, electric cars, Neuralink continue to shatter industry norms, fueled by a fear-driven urgency that Musk channels into frenetic innovation. These modern power players share a common thread: they master Machiavelli's art of fear without devolving into mindless tyranny. They punish quickly, demand absolute loyalty, and maintain an aura of unpredictability that keeps rivals and allies alike on edge. Their strategies confirm that in today's arenas, be it boardroom or battlefield, influence follows the strong, not the sentimental. As you absorb these examples, ask yourself, in your own world, how might you temper kindness with resolute determination, ensuring that your generosity never becomes a gateway to exploitation? The game of power hasn't changed, only the players have learned to play it on a grander scale. Mercy can be the most dangerous misstep in the ruthless pursuit of power. When you hesitate to punish betrayal, you open a chasm for your enemies to exploit. History abounds with leaders undone by well-intentioned clemency, proof that leniency often births rebellion. Take Mikhail Gorbachev, the reformer who dared to show mercy to his political rivals. In his quest for glasnost and perestroika, he loosened the Soviet Union's repressive grip, released dissidents, and embraced democratic reforms. For a fleeting moment, it seemed he had ushered in a new era of hope. But without the ironclad control to back his goodwill, old hardliners and nascent separatists rallied against him. Within years, the empire collapsed, and Gorbachev found himself powerless, hailed by the world yet stripped of authority at home. His mercy had invited the very chaos he sought to prevent. Contrast this with Joseph Stalin, who ruled by the principle of no mercy, no mistake. From the moment he seized power, Stalin eliminated perceived threats with ruthless efficiency, purging party members, executing alleged conspirators, and orchestrating show trials. His brutality cast a long shadow, but it also consolidated absolute loyalty. Citizens learned quickly to challenge Stalin was to face disappearance. Under that grim certainty, his regime survived decades of internal and external turmoil. Genghis Khan offers another stark lesson. Though known for sweeping conquests that left cities in ashes, he practiced selective mercy. Those who surrendered swiftly often earned his favor, gaining protection and prosperity within his empire. This blend of terror and occasional clemency secured loyalty and expanded his rule. But any hint of defiance invited merciless reprisal, fortresses razed, Populations scattered, reminding the world that mercy without leverage is a fatal gamble. Even in modern boardrooms, mercy misapplied can dismantle one's authority. A CEO who forgives every missed deadline without consequence sends a signal standards are negotiable. Productivity wanes, resentment simmers, and the organization fractures under the weight of unearned compassion. Only when expectations are enforced, when failure carries clear repercussions, does a culture of excellence emerge. Machiavelli's directive is clear: permit no rival to recover. Mercy granted to enemies only paves the road for their return. When you spare an opponent, you give them time to regroup, to plot, and to strike with renewed ferocity. Whether in empire or enterprise, forgiveness without strategic purpose invites disaster. As you reflect on these stories, consider your own boundaries. Where has your reluctance to enforce consequences left you vulnerable? True leadership demands more than goodwill. It requires the courage to act decisively, to mete out judgment when mercy becomes a liability, and to protect your realm from the inevitable bid for power. In the ruthless arena of power, hesitation is fatal. Those who wait for problems to erupt before acting are swept away by the very threats they ignored. Machiavelli urged leaders to eliminate rivals before they become dangers, and history offers countless warnings of what happens when you don't. Consider Julius Caesar, supreme victor of Gaul and darling of the Roman masses. Senators whispered of a conspiracy long before the Ides of March, but Caesar, drunk on popularity, dismissed every warning. He believed his fame would shield him from betrayal. On that fateful day, 23 blades ended his life in the Senate chamber. His downfall demonstrates a savage truth: ignoring small threats gives them time to grow into lethal dangers. Contrast Caesar's complacency with Vladimir Lenin's iron resolve. After the 1917 revolution, Lenin faced a fractured Russia brimming with rival factions. Rather than gamble on goodwill, he acted swiftly, dismissing, exiling, or executing opponents before they could consolidate power. By striking preemptively, Lenin secured Bolshevik rule through fear and decisive action. His early purges laid the groundwork for a regime that would last decades. Joseph Stalin took this lesson even further. In the late 1930s, he watched suspicious generals and party officials closely. The slightest hint of dissent triggered swift, merciless purges. Trials, confessions under duress, and sudden disappearances became his signature. Those who hesitated or showed mercy found themselves on the wrong side of a firing squad. Stalin's reign of terror proved that removing threats early, however brutal, can cement a leader's survival. This principle echoes in boardrooms and startups today. Imagine a visionary CEO who spots a charismatic executive quietly rallying support among top investors. Instead of waiting to see if disloyalty blossoms, the CEO offers the executive a lucrative but powerless advisory role or quietly dials down their equity. By neutralizing the threat before it materializes, the leader preserves authority and prevents a coup behind closed doors. The lesson is stark: power respects the decisive, not the doubtful. Inaction breeds insurgency. Swift measures enforce stability. Each moment you delay, you grant your adversaries the chance to organize, to influence others, and to strike when you least expect it. As you navigate your own spheres of influence, ask yourself, which simmering rivalries have you neglected, and how might preemptive action secure your position before the conflict erupts? Remember, in the delicate dance of power, the strongest partner is the one who leads with unflinching resolve. In the realm of power, your greatest weapon is not force, it's illusion. What others believe about you shapes reality far more than your actual strengths. Machiavelli insisted a prince must be both lion and fox, fierce enough to intimidate, cunning enough to mislead. Deception and perception become your strategy's twin pillars. Picture Julius Caesar's fateful crossing of the Rubicon. He didn't announce his march on Rome. He kept his legions under tight secrecy, maintaining the charade of routine maneuvers. When the first legionnaires splashed across the river's cold currents, panic surged through the Senate. Caesar's silent arrival shattered the illusion of Roman stability. By the time his enemies realized the threat, it was too late. Napoleon Bonaparte mastered this art centuries later. At dawn, he appeared content to defend small towns. Midnight dispatches carried no hint of his true plan. Then, like a thunderclap, his armies swept through the Alps and descended on unsuspecting armies. His unpredictability, his ability to mask his intentions left opponents scrambling. In warfare and in corporate skirmishes alike, foreknowledge breeds resistance, surprise destroys it. This principle plays out in boardrooms today. Imagine Rachel, a rising CEO who frames her expansion strategy as tentative, downplaying her resources and capability. Competitors breathe a sigh of relief, believing she lacks the firepower to challenge them. Behind closed doors, Rachel refines her launch, timing each press release to coincide with market downturns. When her product finally debuts, it dominates. Competitors are left flat-footed, their complacency exploited by her controlled facade. Deception demands discipline. Reveal only what serves your purpose. A leader who shares every contingency plan hands rivals the blueprint to undermine you. Instead, sprinkle just enough truth to appear transparent. Then guard your deeper intentions like precious cargo. Silence becomes a shield. Ambiguity, a magnet that draws others into your narrative. Perception, too, is shaped by performance. Walk into a negotiation with a steady gaze and measured tone. Your calm aura hints at hidden reserves of power. Let your adversaries wonder what lies beneath your composed exterior. Will you strike with overwhelming force or withdraw into strategic patience? Their uncertainty becomes your advantage. In the game of power, illusion trumps reality. Deception and perception command obedience long before you lift a finger. As you forge your own path, ask yourself, what truths will you conceal? And what image will you project to secure your influence? Remember, in this ruthless arena, the strongest move first, but the smartest move in secret. Now you stand at the crossroads of power and morality, armed with Machiavelli's ruthless truths. You've seen how unguarded kindness invites exploitation, how mercy can be fatal, and how fear cements obedience when love crumbles. You've watched threats crushed before they grow and mastered the art of illusion to keep rivals off balance. But all these strategies lead to one gut-wrenching choice. Will you cling to your comforting ideals, or will you embrace the brutal mechanics of power? Imagine walking into a pivotal moment, perhaps a crucial boardroom showdown or a life-altering negotiation. On one side, your conscience whispers that fairness and compassion must prevail. On the other, you feel the icy logic of Machiavelli reminding you that strength commands respect, not sentiment. Every instinct you have will drive you toward the moral high ground. Yet every lesson you've learned insists that moral high ground can become your downfall. Consider Ella, whose boundless generosity once cost her career momentum. Recall Marcus, whose unwavering loyalty left him abandoned at his darkest hour. Both were guided by the belief in unconditional kindness, and both paid a steep price. Now, armed with Machiavelli's playbook, you understand that empathy must be tempered with strategy, that generosity without boundaries is surrender, and that perception can be more potent than reality. This isn't a betrayal of your values, it's an evolution. The world you inhabit rewards those who marry moral integrity with tactical awareness. It honors the leader who knows when to lend a hand and when to tighten the grip. It respects the innovator who dazzles with transparency and then unveils the next move at the opportune moment. It fears the ruler who strikes decisively, sparing no mercy for those who threaten stability. The ultimate question now rests on your shoulders. Will you remain the hopeful idealist, vulnerable to the knives of betrayal? Or will you become the strategic architect of your own destiny, wielding fear and deception as tools to secure your realm? The stakes could not be higher. Your legacy, your influence, even your survival may hinge on your answer. As you step into your next challenge, remember, power doesn't favor the innocent, it elevates the prepared. Which path will you choose? Over the course of this video, we've shattered the comforting myth that pure goodness guarantees success. We explored Machiavelli's exile and the birth of the prince, uncovered the brutal choice between fear and love, and examined historical examples from Louis XVI to Caesar and Augustus. We saw how modern power players Steve Jobs, Putin, Musk wield strategic ruthlessness, and learned that mercy can be a fatal mistake while preemptive action secures survival. We mastered the arts of illusion, controlled information, and strategic scarcity, transforming virtue into a tool of influence. If these insights challenged the way you think, make sure to like, follow, and share so you and your network can access more deep dives into power, psychology, and real-world strategy. Now ask yourself, which Machiavellian principle will you apply first to protect your ambitions and reshape your path to success?